Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Kevlar here from Disorderly Product News. Today we are going to talk about the right to travel. You've seen it on every sovereign citizen video. They will not hand over an ID. They will not hand over a driver's license because they are not driving. They are traveling and they are in their personal conveyance. What does it mean? They say it's in the Constitution. Is it? Let's find out now. So, the right to travel is in the Constitution. It is in one of the articles, somewhere in there. What it speaks about, let's first define what a sovereign citizen is. Sovereign citizen, the word itself is an oxymoron. An oxymoron is a phrase with two words in it, one that contradicts the other. Controlled chaos. They are antonyms. They mean the opposite. To put them in a sentence or a phrase together means absolutely nothing. That is the same as sovereign citizen. To be sovereign is to mean you are autonomous. You are ruled and governed by no one. You do what you want, when you want, how you want. It is complete freedom. To say you are a citizen means you belong to a structure, a society in which you follow the rule of law. You are governed by the rule of law. In society, in America, we know the rules we follow. Obviously, there are rules, there are crimes, I don't have to explain to you how America works, you know. So, sovereign citizens believe there is no rule, nothing applies to them. They believe if they are driving in the car, as long as they are not carrying products, merchandise, they are not doing commerce, they're not making money off the trip, then they are only traveling, thus they don't need a driver's license. Plus, they think they have the inalienable right to property, which they do, but they don't believe the government has a right to register that property, which is not true. And I'll tell you why. The right to travel does not exist. Why? Because cars were not invented until 100 years after the Constitution was written. There's nothing about cars in the Constitution. In fact, traffic is governed by the state. It is given that power from the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, where it says states can enact laws as long as those laws do not directly oppose the Constitution. They don't fly in the face. They don't contradict the Constitution. It also says there shall be one court supreme above all. That's the Supreme Court, and they are the ones that interpret the laws, and they will have the final decision. So, the right to travel, what is it? It has nothing to do with cars. Our forefathers, when creating the Constitution, the greatest document ever written, still alive today, created the greatest democracy, the greatest country, the greatest 50 states joined together and worked in unison. To have that happen was a feat that had never happened in the history of the world, right? 50 different, somewhat autonomous, somewhat able to govern themselves, but ultimately falling under the rule of the federal government when push comes to shove. So, if you're in Wisconsin, you can have Wisconsin laws as long as those laws do not fly in the face of the Supreme Court. So, what is the right to travel? The right to travel is just this. When they were writing the Constitution, they had to decide if you are going from Florida to Alabama, if you're going from California to Oregon, if you are going from Texas to Louisiana, do you need a passport? Do you need some kind of identification? If you are entering another state, does that state need to know you're there? And do they have the right to ask you for an ID or a passport? The end result was obviously no. You have a right to travel within the contiguous 48 states, right? You can, because going from Illinois to Indiana, you are just crossing an imaginary line. There is nothing there. So you don't need anything. You are American citizens, so you have a right to all 50 states, and 48 of them can be traveled by car. You need to put your car in a boat if you want to get to Alaska or Hawaii. But that is what the right to travel means. It has nothing to do with cars. It has nothing to do with horsebacks. It has nothing to do with maybe in the future spaceships. It just has to do with the fact, once you cross that border, do you have to announce yourself? Do you have to give an ID? Can they refuse you entrance into another state? And obviously the answer to that is no. So there is a right to travel, but it has nothing to do with cars. And you also need a license, because the Supreme Court has upheld that the way they state it is danger is in attendance when you are driving. It is always in great attendance, which means danger is present. And because it is present, you have to be licensed to drive, right? You can't have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old on the expressway in a Corvette. You know, there has to be some kind of rule, because the welfare of the public is at risk when you are in a car. So, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, you have to be licensed to drive. That's just the truth. Don't listen to a sovereign citizen if they try and tell you otherwise. If they tell you not to pay your taxes, you will end up like Wesley Snipes in jail owing $19 million. There is no way you can buy the Brooklyn Bridge by sending in a check and waiting 90 days, and if nobody opposes you, you do not own the Brooklyn Bridge. These things do not exist. These loopholes are crazy. If they sound crazy, they are. It doesn't happen like that. And that is Captain Kevlar giving you your legal advice for the day.